I killed my training partner. How can you develop effortless power? Is it just a promise made by martial arts hucksters who want fame or money? Or is there a reliable method to get that ability that so many high-level karate men have in Okinawa that lets them drop an opponent with what seems to be a light touch? I always think back to the heavyweight boxing champion of the world of my childhood, Rocky Marciano. If you watch some of Rocky's old fights, I mean, Rocky was very strong and he trained very hard. But a lot of his knockouts looked like they were just very soft punches.
Strong as ever, bull-like in his rushes. A solid left, and down goes Lewis. A left hook to the jaw, and Lewis takes the count on one knee.
There's a secret behind those seemingly soft and relaxed punches. The thing is, I don't think there's an effortless anything. You can't have anything that's worth having without making effort. But the effort should be made in developing it, not executing it. And that's the secret. If you haven't seen many of our videos and don't know much about the way we train, let me give you a short explanation. As you probably know, traditional karate has striking practice as a core element, where we hit various pads and bags to develop accuracy and power. And in this way, it's very much like boxing. But in a lot of modern styles, there's more striking going on in the air than there is against solid objects. And people don't make strong contact with their partners. And as a result, they don't have the conditioned hands that karate people have always used to identify each other. Sports competition wearing gloves is pretty far away from stabbing someone with the fingers like in the old days. My karate rank was conferred by the Kokusai Budo Renmei, an international organization headquartered in Japan, and they have a karate department, a judo department, jujutsu, kendo, iaido, and they oversee all the recognized martial arts. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this world, I should point out that the art of slicing people with the Japanese sword, used in battle for hundreds of years, was adapted for sport in modern times by using bamboo, armor, and rules. This is called kendo. You've probably seen it. The art of the live sword, on the other hand, in modern times was made into a demonstration of skill called iaido, where only one practitioner executes movements and not enemies. In these two very different ways, the historical sword fighting tradition of old Japan is kept alive. But one expert thought this wasn't enough. Nobody was cutting anything. How did they know they were effective with a sword if they didn't cut bodies? So the sword master Taisaburo Nakamura created Battojutsu, which consists of the same test they used in feudal times, cutting up a soaked, wet, rolled up length of tatami matting wound around a bamboo pole, which simulates the density and the consistency of a human body. This is how they tested swords back in the bad old days. And Mr. Nakamura felt that sword practice needed to get back to a more realistic form. So Battojutsu became a recognized martial art by the Kokusai Budo Renmei, and that's how I know about it. I have participated in tests of cutting, and it takes skill. I don't have it. But it reminded me of the tameshiwari breaking practice of the karate world, and I returned to testing the effectiveness of my blows by breaking things. And at first I was encouraged. I could still do it like back in the 60s. Then I developed some medical problems that started robbing me of my strength and my muscles and my calluses and my self-esteem. I just didn't have the old pizzazz anymore, and it wasn't likely that I would get it back. I even started hunting smaller game, you might say, and I failed at that. Although I did accomplish something that is probably the fruit equivalent of the delayed death touch, where the legendary karate men were able to hit a man lightly and have him die many days later. This melon oozed something nasty looking days after I hit it, so I must have done something. Nevertheless, I continued to train on a variety of training tools to the best of my ability, including the classic Okinawan makiwara, or as they call it in Okinawa, machiwara. And then in 2016, I decided to use my new lower level of fitness to figure out how someone older, weaker, sicker could still be effective in self-defense. I would test new methods of moving and hitting, and I figured if I could do it, someone else could. This was the start of the Common Sense Self-Defense course. My equipment and my body was the laboratory for this research. As I changed from the training methods I knew to simpler ones, I discovered I was getting more powerful instead of less. Odd things happened. I hit the makiwara so hard it snapped in half. I was making an impromptu speech one day about effortless power to my training partners when I just jabbed the heavy bag to illustrate something, and the shock ripped it out of the wall, and down it came. A student took a picture of me looking dumbfounded just after it happened, which is pretty funny. She said, this was secured to rock maple, a very hard wood, and you split it. It didn't seem likely that that kind of shock could be transmitted through a rope, but there it was. It got really crazy when I was filming a training video with our speed bag dummy, and I broke that. It's mounted on bungee cord. How can you break this? People jump off bridges on these things. How can you snap off the metal end of a bungee cord? Then I had to keep reinforcing Ruffy. My training dummy, that we affectionately call Ruffy, is a firmly built mokujin, or wooden man dummy, with a very solid construction that I like to tear into without holding back. And I had to keep adding more and more metal braces to keep the wooden joints together. And then I started breaking the metal hardware. So I would replace it with bigger, thicker metal. And then came the awful day when I snapped Ruffy's head off. His coil spring spine was protruding like a cadaver study. My best training partner was decapitated. But I thought of those Batto Jutsu experts and how they were pretty much assured of being able to cut a man's head off, and it suddenly didn't seem so sad. Happy ending as we got Ruffy put back together and we all enjoy wailing on him. But the lesson is this. If you train yourself to move in a certain way and you test that against some durable objects, you can develop deadly skill no matter if you are small, old, or weak. We cover the way to do this in our Common Sense Self-Defense course. You didn't think I was going to hog it to myself, did you? Go to karatehack.net and have a look. You too can have effortless power.